welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest to introduce to you now. Antoine Carr is the big dog. Antoine is a former American professional basketball player who played an incredible 16 years in the NBA. 4 of those years were spent right here in Utah between 1994 and 1998, which included 2 incredible and devastating trips to the NBA Finals, falling twice to Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls. It is still too soon to talk about this. This is acutely painful to me. Too soon. In his NBA career, he scored 9,176 points, shot an amazing 78% from the free throw line, and was a master at managing the ball down low, powerful dunks, and hitting jump shots under pressure. Antoine lived up to his nickname, the Big Dawg, by playing with respect, charisma, and dominance. His hard work made him a fan favorite, and he has continued working hard, running a construction company and working with several charities and engaging with fans on Twitter. Antoine Carr.
How you doing?
Dude, I am great. It is an absolute honor to welcome you to Boundless Body Radio.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for joining me. What are you doing in Utah?
Well, I came down, and the great Keller Williams organization had me come in, and we're working with them and their charity. The Red Day, obviously, is to help the people who are in business and fighting against COVID-19.
That's awesome. Wow. I really love that. I didn't know much about that charity effort until we kind of set this up, and I think it's a really amazing thing that you're doing. It's great. Great to be involved with.
Well, thank you. And also, along with that, they're helping me get my podcast going, that better known as the Big Dawg Cast.
Dude, I love that.
They're helping me get everything going properly. And
nice.
We're just having fun with Mr. Black.
Wow, good for you. That's so cool. That's awesome. So being in Utah, when was the last time you ever had to buy a drink or a meal in this state?
Last night.
No way. No way. You are one of the most beloved athletes that has ever come through this state. What was it like to play here with the fan base that we have?
Oh, well, at first I was a little bit nervous. All the things you hear. Well, you're not going to be liked very much. You're African-American, this, that, and the other. And come to find out, none of it was true. So I had a great time. I mean, everybody enjoyed us. We worked together from here to Idaho.
Wow.
Well, I enjoyed it. I love the fans here.
Wow, that's great. We've talked about this before in the show, but there's a good reason that it's not the Salt Lake Jazz. This is the Utah Jazz. And this region, you're right, not only just Utah, Idaho, some of these states, this is like the heartbeat of this state. This team is something special and something different than a lot of other clubs.
Well, I like to call it family.
I love that.
That's the way I look at it, is we're all family. We're trying to make this thing work. And you get out there and you do your best.
That's great.
And if it's not quite good enough, you get with somebody that's willing to work with you, and you keep working hard together. And big things happen.
That's amazing. I love that. I definitely want to talk about hard work. I want to talk about that family. I used to see Gail Miller every day at the gym. I used to see John Absey every day at the gym. It's super fun to keep up with them. But let's talk a little bit about you and growing up. How did you get the nickname Big Dawg?
Well, I was in a really tough neighborhood, and my dad was a truck driver. He was on the road a lot, and he went and bought me a Rottweiler. And I took the dog pretty much everywhere I went. I mean, when I went to church, he would sit outside until I got out. I go to the basketball court, he would sit on the side. So
wow.
Eventually everyone started just calling me Big Dawg because my big dog was always there.
That's great. That's amazing. You mentioned difficult neighborhoods. What kind of challenges did you face?
You had gangs, you had shootings, domestic abuse. You had a ton of things in that neighborhood. I mean, it was just a tough neighborhood, and we made it through it. We had some guys that said, "We'll take care of Antoine, make sure he doesn't get wrapped up in gangs," and some of those, what we call the OGs in the area.
Wow.
Just basically told the guys, "Look, he's untouchable. You don't mess with him."
Wow. That must mean a lot looking back to you now and everything that you accomplished to have those influences in your life. I'm sure that's
Well, it definitely does. I wouldn't do any of the things that the OGs did, but I appreciate that they took care of my family and made sure that they were okay.
I love that.
During tough times.
Wow, that's great. And then with the tough times creates the space for growth and, becoming something bigger than that environment. When did you know basketball was going to be a part of that?
Well, I started out in a basketball program called Biddy Basketball. And that's what got me going. I had a coach named Mr. Mitchell, I believe was his name. And he came and picked me up one day and said, hey, I want you to play for my team. And that's what we did.
So with that challenging upbringing and getting involved with basketball, how did you use that to I guess, give you that work ethic that you needed to advance your career through high school and eventually to college?
Well, the first thing that kind of happened was I was what you call a pretty boy dunker. I would go up and try to do all these pretty things and lightly slam it. Well, my brother, who was at the time 6'6", could jump out the gym, had like a 46 vertical.
Whoa.
Tells me, what are you doing? I was like, that look good. And he's like, no, you're a basketball player. You have to be hard. When you go to the rim, you want to terrify people.
Wow. If
you don't, they're going to try to block your shot. So that's when I became a hard dunker.
Wow.
That's when you started seeing me really pulling back, and I used to do a dunk like we call the God of Thunder. And you just threw it off the backboard, jumped from the line and caught it. And my brother was the biggest one to get me going like that.
Wow, interesting.
And then he also kind of told me, well, look, if you're going to end up playing with this high school team that I'm playing with, you're going to have to be ready. So before I got to high school, I started training really hard, every day, constant, trying to get ready. And then I got there, and I ended up playing with a guy named Darnell Valentine, who was the number one pick there in Portland. And Darnell was a beast on the floor.
Wow.
So we ended up being champions, state champions, and we were undefeated.
Wow.
So.
Gotcha. So when you say training, what was the training like back then? Were you just playing a lot, or was there any like strength training at the time?
Oh, we had a little bit of strength training. They had something at that time called the jumper. And we worked with that a little bit, but mostly it was because of Coach Norwood. He had a system of the team runs line drills as a team. So 1 through 15, if one of us did not make it in that 21-second time limit, we ran it again and again and again until we all made it. So we started learning that, hey, we're going to run, we're going to get out there, and some of us who are a little bit faster, we run back out there and grab guys and almost literally throw them across the line.
Wow.
So, we were trying to make sure we won.
Wow. That's great. I'm thinking of the scene from like one of my all-time favorite movies, The Miracle, when Coach Herb Brooks is again, and they have to skate those ladders the whole time. What was it like transitioning into college ball?
Well, for me, it was kind of easy. I was there in my hometown, Wichita, and I was just able to go out and play and be a normal kid still. I was able to talk to all my friends, all my family was around, so it was a little bit easier, I think, for me to go through college.
Gotcha. What were the classes like? Were you a good student?
I was a pretty good student, yeah.
Good. Nice. When did it become an issue where you had to make a decision to either stay in college or go pro without completing your 4 years?
It was my junior year. At the same time, Cliff Livingston, who's my teammate, and we call each other bookends because we look so much alike on the floor, we kind of thought, well, should we go or should we stay? He decided. He had a few looks, and he knew that Chicago was going to consider him, or Atlanta. And I was kind of wondering, well, I've got a lot of loyalty to people. And when I tell you I'm going to do something, I tend to do it.
Yeah.
So I just I talked to Coach, and I said, look, Coach Smith, and I know I can go pro. I know I can make some money. But my loyalty says I have to stay here. So, Coach, I'm going to stay one more year. Wow. And then what happens when I go pro happens.
That's super cool. That's a big theme in your life. I've noticed that a lot, the teamwork, the loyalty to people. Like if you go in to a fight with somebody, you're gonna fight with them.
Oh, yeah. Well, if I go in a fight with them, we're going to win.
Yeah, I love that.
That's, our attitude. We're going to win. We're going to work together. We're going to do whatever we need to do. And if the dog has to get down to the dirty part, then That's why they call me the DAWG.
Love it. I love it. That's great. You were drafted after college. You went to the Pistons, but you didn't actually play a single game for them. Is that correct?
No, I didn't play for them. We couldn't come to terms on the contract. And I'm one of those guys that if I give you an ultimatum and you're 1 hour late, too bad.
That's it.
And I told them that either they signed me quickly or I was gone. I had a friend in Italy who had a team, and they didn't pull the trigger fast enough. And by the time they were ready to, I was already on the plane headed toward Milan, Italy.
Ciao. So how was the game? How was the game different in Europe at the time than it was here in the States?
I don't think it was as rough. You know, back then you could hand check, you could basically body check a little bit. There was a little bit more like the basketball now, just a little bit tougher and not as much walking.
I love that. I love that. When I hear 1980s and Pistons, I'm thinking you're going to get elbowed, you're going to get kicked, something's going to happen to you if you come beyond the 3-point line. Something physical is going to happen to you.
Oh, well, you're definitely going to get banged up. I mean, you know, you have to remember we had guys like the Bad Boys in, and that wasn't the only team that was tough. I mean, if you came against the Atlanta Hawks, the Boston Celtics, I mean, you're going to have a rough time in the NBA at that time.
Wow, interesting. When you did come back to the NBA, you mentioned Atlanta. That's where you landed first, correct? And that was 6 years that you were there?
Yes.
What was it like in Atlanta playing pro ball? Like, what was the transition like from Europe to the NBA and being a pro, reaching your dreams?
Well, it was a little bit of a culture shock because I went from obviously Milan, Italy to Atlanta, Georgia. And I had to get used to what was going on there in Atlanta. I ended up enjoying it, and then I ended up getting traded. So it was kind of one of those things. I loved Atlanta as far as the city, but as far as me playing, I really wasn't on board with the way they played me, the way they treated me.
I see.
I guess you could say.
Gotcha. Atlanta has better barbecue than Italy. That is for sure.
Absolutely.
That barbecue joint that's just outside of the airport in Atlanta. I can't remember what it's called, but it's amazing. It's the best barbecue I've ever had. You mentioned getting traded, and that was after those 6 years. You from there went to Sacramento. I wanted to talk to you about that. You had the opportunity to play in a few smaller markets, and it's interesting to hear you say like you didn't really get in the flow in Atlanta. But you went to Sacramento, you went to San Antonio, you went to Salt Lake City, Utah. I mean, these are basketball like areas. They don't have a lot of pro sports, but they love basketball. What was the culture like comparing it to where you were in Atlanta? Well,
the smaller cities, you could get into the fans' head a little bit more, if you know what I mean. When in Atlanta, they're kind of looking at you, hey, Antoine, we love you. But here it's, hey, dog. They're into it. And that's what I like. That's the biggest part for me, especially here in Utah, was the fans. I mean, when we started the Show Me the Title thing, it just went bonkers.
Yes.
And,
I remember that.
You can't beat those type of things to help you as an athlete on the floor when you're trying to win a championship. When you have the fans that are that tied into you, it makes it a little bit easier.
Wow. I always felt bad for the opposing teams when they would come here and like the taunting at the old Delta Center, like, whoa.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're going to be tough.
I'd be crying in the corner. What was it like to play for San Antonio when you would come to Utah?
Well, at that time it was a little tough because I was playing off and on a lot, and I was playing with David Robinson and those guys. And we were going, and I knew Carl and those guys, so it was a little bit rough because I want to obviously beat Carl and those guys, but at the same time, they're kind of friends, and I have to support my teammates.
That's right.
So I'm with the Spurs, and sorry, but we got to kick your behind.
Wow. What did you learn with playing with David Robinson?
Well, one thing about David is he was, how do I put this? He was a very religious guy. Mm-hmm. So his belief in God had him thinking a certain way about training, about being just in life. So he would always want us to go in and have, say, mass or whatever you want to call it.
Wow.
And we sit there before games and those type of things. So it was a camaraderie thing that I enjoyed
Yeah.
with them.
Wow. He's just such a wonderful person from everything I know about him. It must have been a great experience to get to spend time with
He's
him.
absolutely a great person.
Before we talk about your transition to Utah, up until this point, most athletes, they hate playing against somebody. And there's also somebody who doesn't matter what the night is, you have their number, you can always dominate them. Who are those two players for you?
Wow. The person I hated playing the most, probably Larry Bird.
Good answer.
And everybody asked me, why Larry? Larry would talk stuff to you and then proceed to do what he said. So it was kind of one of those things that, if I got Larry tonight, this could be a little bit of trouble.
Wow. He was a trash talker, like one of the best, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he got us down in New Orleans one time. It was the Atlanta Hawks against the Boston Celtics in New Orleans, and it was basically my kind of first game in America. I was kind of hyped up, stole the ball a couple times. I think you might have saw it on YouTube, see me go up and dunk on them. And I made one big mistake. I went to him and said, yeah, it's a new day. And I never should have done that.
Wow.
Because he proceeded to light us up for 60.
That's amazing. You can talk as much smack as you want if you can back it up. That's fair.
Well, I would say that, yeah. But then, everybody say, well, it's trash talk. Well, kind of hard to be trash talk when it's factual.
Exactly. Wow. Who was a player that maybe you could pretty much always dominate?
Oh, well, I could pretty much, when my coaches allowed me to play, I don't think there was really too many guys that could stop me. When I played for Sacramento, I finally had a coach who said, Antoine, go out there, play your game. Don't worry about anything else, just play your game. And if you look at my stats and the way our team played then, you're in trouble.
Wow. How many minutes were you getting a game?
Back then, I was probably getting somewhere around 34,
Wow.
35.
Wow, that's a lot. That's great. We talked to Pace Mannion on the show several months ago, and he talked about how he was never able to get a foothold in the NBA because he got so few minutes, but they were always like broken up. Like it would be 3 minutes here and then sit and get cold, and then 4 minutes here and then sit and get cold. It's totally different than if you're getting those kinds of minutes, right? You get in the flow of the game. You understand, what the other team is coming at you with. It's very different. Is that right?
Yeah, it's really tough when you're, as I tell them, I went from a starter to a bench starter because when I came off as 6 man, something was going to happen. So for me, it was a little bit tough to go from starting and then turn around and say, okay, well, as soon as coach calls me, I'm going to be ready. And then I found out that if I did it that way, I stayed ready. Who knows what would happen? And obviously you saw what happened when I stayed ready on the 5th Chicago game.
That's right.
I was able to come out, knock down some jumpers, get things going.
Huge. That was huge. Yeah. I think that's a really cool life lesson. Like sometimes we start and sometimes we don't, but if you're always ready, you can handle whatever situation comes your way with a good attitude and positivity, and you can really make some good accomplishments.
Well, that's the biggest key. And that's why I like working with the people I'm working with now, because I've got people who are on my side who are saying, go for it. And that's the biggest thing. If you don't have that crew of yours that's behind you and believing in your ideas and your charities and things that you're doing also, then you're kind of wasting your time.
Yeah.
But when you got that crew in there, everybody, like I said earlier, when you've got everyone as fans and they're pushing, they all have the same goal, man, it is something special.
Wow. That's so cool. Speaking of the team, in 94, you go from San Antonio to Utah. Was that again, those markets seem to be very similar. Was it a major change for you or not so much?
Well, obviously it was a little bit of a change because the Hispanic area there is very, very strong. And their fan base is phenomenal.
Wow.
but then you're still having to deal with Utah. Okay, Utah loves you to death.
Yep.
They want to pump you up.
Yep.
They want to do all they can.
Wow. Tell me, we have to talk about Jerry. What was it like to play for Jerry?
Oh, Jerry was a hard-nosed country boy that he would let you know, I'm still tough.
That's awesome. Yeah. What lessons did you learn from him besides the toughness? Was there something that he taught you that helped you through the rest of your career?
Yeah, he told me, you got to be tough, and Antoine, you don't let nobody get in your face, brother. Wow. Yeah, Jerry was just phenomenal. He was one of those guys, like I told you, that I enjoy being around.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah. So the core was here. We had we had John, we had Carl, we had a bunch of the support players. Was Jeff Hornacek on the team at the time? Okay. And we added you. What were some of the other core players that you think were essential for Utah to go from, a strong contender in the West to actually a finals material?
Well, we had Greg Foster, Shandon Anderson, and then, my buddy, Chris Morris.
I remember him.
We had a very tough team. And if you ever had to watch those guys play outside of us, they were good players.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. 96, get to the conference finals against the Sonics. Is that correct?
I believe so. I'm getting old, man. You coming up with all these things back in my younger days.
I told you, man, it's like it's so acute. I remember all of this. I remember watching that game. I believe it was Game 7 in Seattle. We're this close, man. We're this close. I'm screaming at the TV, cheering you guys on, and you don't make it. What was it like to get that close and not be able to make it into the finals?
Well, it's heartbreaking. Obviously, you want to get all the way. You want to fight for that gold cup. You want to be that person, that team that says, look what we've done.
Wow.
And to get there at least twice with this team, it was just tough not finishing it out and winning the whole thing.
Next year, extra motivation, it sounds like. You're fired up. You got the taste. You made it to Game 7 in the conference finals. Now we're in Houston. And the play, John Stockton gets the ball, and I'll never forget, Bob Costas a call. John Stockton sends the Utah Jazz to the NBA Finals, and seeing you guys celebrate like your 5-year-olds is one of my favorite things to watch. What did that mean to you?
Well, I was just loving it because you're always looking for John to do the little bitty other tough things, the setting the picks on big guys, the constant hustle. But for him to hit that game-winning shot when we needed him, and to see the glee on his face and on his family's face, it's unspeakable. There's nothing I can really say in words that will capture that moment.
This is so amazing. We go to the finals. We face the Bulls, just loaded. Nobody really expected Utah to do much in that finals. Is that correct? It seemed like our expectations are pretty low. We were lucky to get there almost.
Well, maybe for everyone else, but on our team, no, we felt like we could beat anyone at any time. I'm hyped up right now, as you can tell.
I love it. You played hyped up also, and which is great. What was it like to play with and share time with Greg Ostertag? I've always wondered this. I don't know how else to say this. There was a difference in your work ethic.
Well, he was a different type of player. He enjoyed himself a little bit more. He smiled and laughed. I mean, I know Ostertag and I love Oster. Okay, but he's a funny guy. He's going to do some funny things or something that's unusual. But he's a good guy at heart. So,
great.
I didn't mind backing him up. Now, I thought he should have backed me up, obviously. You know that, bro. No. But, I enjoyed playing my role. And my role was anytime the coach called me off of that bench, here come the dog, And understand, this is not a DOG type of dog.
I love that.
Okay? This isn't the one that's going to be prancing around inside the gym. This is the one that's going to get down and dirty. So that was my thing. Call me. Let's get it going.
That's great. That's awesome. That summer, you guys go to work. You train probably as hard as you've ever trained, and the chemistry of that team was just electric. And you go into the 97-98 season winning a lot of games. You guys won a lot of games that season, and definitely the team to beat. What was that season like for you?
Oh, I enjoyed it a great deal. And like I said, again, the fans were so phenomenal. So for me, it was just one of those things. I had great fans. I had great friends that lived around me. I mean, I lived in Murray at the time. And, I come home and I've got posters and things stacked all over my house. I could barely get in my house, but thank you guys. I appreciate it anyway, because, you have to have that type of feeling. And I had that feeling the whole time.
Wow. Super cool. I wonder if you recall what it was like to go to the conference finals against the Lakers, another really good team. You swept them. Meanwhile, Chicago is duking it out with the Pacers in the East, and they go 7, and that is a physical, hard series, and you guys are down. There's nothing, to have the playoff intensity but not have a game, it was like 8 or 9 days, maybe 10 days. What was that waiting period like?
Well, it was excruciating because then you have to go back to doing Jerry's training. Like I said, he's an old country boy, so he's going to put you to work.
Wow. Yeah, so you worked hard in those.
Yeah, we worked hard, and it throws you off just a little bit because you have a rhythm that you're into at a certain point, but now you don't have a game, so that rhythm isn't quite there anymore.
That's what I would think. Interesting. I watched an interview that you did. It was right before the game 6 here in Salt Lake, and it was after that game 5 where you just went off. Well, what did that mean to you to be the person that the team needed, and you were the one that stepped up and hit those critical shots?
Well, I'd been telling Coach, give me the chance, Coach. I'm ready. I don't know what else has been on your mind during the time, but if you put the dog out here, something's going to happen. If nothing else, if I got to go over there and bite Michael Jordan's ankle, if something's going to happen, I'm going to stop some stuff.
I love it. That's great. You should have been a hockey player, man.
That would be bad because I probably would have no teeth, and a dog with no teeth is nothing.
That's very true. Very true. I told you it's still too soon to talk about. Last year, The Last Dance came out, the documentary about the Bulls and Michael Jordan and his journey, and really interesting, very well done documentary. I really liked it, but it started out, that opening scene of Jordan dropping that last shot, and every time I stand up out of my couch and yell, he pushed off, no, I'm all angry about it. That, I forgot, I really forgot until watching The Last Dance how much of a turn that game 6 took in the last, 45 seconds.
Yeah, well, a lot of little things. I can't remember exactly. Someone shot a shot from half court and they disallowed it. I think it was Howard Isley. And then, they hit other shots, and then obviously you're playing against supposedly the greatest guard in the game ever, and he uses the old push-off move, one of the old neighborhood moves.
Yep.
And unfortunately, Brian kind of reached a little bit too far, and he pushed him out of the way and hit the jumper.
Man, too soon. You were on the floor for that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, gotcha. And ready for the rebound in case things turned?
Well, if you look at it, you see that I was sitting there trying my best to block out Rodman.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's right. What was he like to play against?
Oh, wow. Dennis was different. He's another one of my friends, and he's one of those type that he'll decide, okay, I'm going to get married, and not tell anybody who he's getting married to, and then call me at the last minute and say, Antoine, you see everybody? You see what they're doing? And, bro, who you marrying? Carmen? Madonna? Myself. But that's my man. I mean, he's a good dude. If you know him, he'll give you the shirt off his back.
Wow, that's great.
Which I'm sure a bunch of you fans know that. You probably have his jersey because after the games, he's known for throwing them up there.
That's right. Wow. Well, I remember the day. It was so funny. We spent the non-game days in our driveways. I'm Antoine Carr. I'm John Stockton. I'm Carl Malone. We would play the basketball hoops all over my old neighborhood. And it was a Sunday that game happened. And I remember coming out in June and walking out of the front door. You're not watching TV anymore because the series is over, and you're like wiping the dust from your eyes because we've all been watching basketball collectively as a state for so long and so invested in that finals. And that ended up being pretty much the last iteration of that team. A lot of things kind of disbanded after that. And that was your last year in Utah.
Yes. And unfortunately, we had to go back to the same old things of getting knocked out the first round. Not saying that you guys messed up and not bringing the dog back, but you did.
You did. That's great. Was it an organizational decision?
I'm not for sure exactly who decided it or why they decided it, but it is what it is. Yeah. You know, I thought at the time that they were completely wrong in doing it. And I felt like if they had kept that team together at least one more year, we had a very good chance of winning it all.
Interesting. And then Jordan would have been out of the way, of course. Probably a new team would have come out of the East. And yeah, interesting. What was the rest of your career like?
Oh, it was pretty good. You know, other than Vancouver, you know, I went down to Houston. I was playing there. Things didn't exactly go as I had planned. I ended up getting injured. But I enjoyed Houston. And then all of a sudden I got traded to Vancouver. It's kind of gray up there, not much, you know. It's not like looking here at Salt Lake from Keller Williams and you're able to see the mountains.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
See all the beautiful things. No, you're down there, it's just gray, brother.
Interesting.
You know, and for me, I started going out and talking to people, and you find out how many people had mental issues because of the grayness of the area. Just like it was, how do I put it? It's just people just didn't feel good about it.
Wow.
But then you see later on people going to Seattle and those areas and things starting to get a little bit better. Of course, you know, Vancouver and those areas have great skiing areas, though.
That's right.
So once you get outside of the city, you get up in those mountains and start enjoying things similar to here in Salt Lake City. Boom.
Wow.
You get out of that negative space.
Sure.
I guess you could say.
Yeah, gotcha. When did you know it was time to retire?
Well, when teams didn't want to sign me as easily. You know, you go in, you're talking to them, and they were like, well, what do you see yourself as? Well, I'm still a great player, starter. Well, we were seeing you more like, you know, coming off the bench, helping us get things going, you know, being a force in the locker room. And you're kind of going, well, I understand where you're going, but I still have a lot left in this tank. So.
And when you left the game, you felt like you still had much more to give.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, especially where I see these guys that play now.
Yeah.
If I could get away with half of that, man.
Gotcha. Some professional athletes struggle when they retire. Was retirement difficult for you?
Well, I've never officially retired, but for me, my retirement was more, I went back into doing things that I loved to do before. I was into doing carpeting and tile work and, you know, doing my construction. I was just doing things that I'd enjoy, and that's still what I do to this day.
That's great. And you're based out of San Antonio?
Yes.
Why did you decide to go back there?
Well, my lady that I was with decided that she no longer wanted to be here because of the snow. And I had said to her that one day when we looked at it, we'll decide we'll leave when it snows again. I never thought it was going to be 2 weeks.
Welcome to Utah.
I'm thinking, you know, I got another month, 2 months, no problem. 2 weeks later, I'm told to guess what? Look outside. And we had a little home kind of on the side of the mountain, and you could see over the other little peak, the snow coming over. And I'm going, God, here we go.
Bags are packed.
Well, the funny thing is we packed up everything, got ready to go, and I had a friend of mine named Rod Zundel.
Yeah.
Called me up, and he asked me to do some tile work at his house. So before I got out of town, I went on and did Rod Zundel's house.
That's super cool. That's great. As you look back on your career, I would love to learn about maybe a big challenge, a difficulty, a low point that you went through that was really challenging at the time, but is something that has given you strength, not only during your career, but also afterwards.
Well, there was a time during the season, I guess the last season I was here, that I contemplated kind of taking a step away from basketball for a second. At the time, I didn't feel like everything was the way I wanted it. And I thought about it. I went and talked to Coach about what I was feeling. And he was just telling me, well, Antoine, be ready. That's what I brought you here for. I want you to have that little attitude. So don't get depressed. Don't get down. Just stay ready. You're my dog. And when he said that, it kind of uplifted me a little bit. And I was like, you got it, Coach. I'm ready to go again.
There's that loyalty, like you mentioned before.
Well, that's what made it so big to me. Now, trying to get the little lady back out of here may be completely different. No, I'm just kidding.
It was 80 degrees a week ago, and it's snowing today. So this is ringing Utah.
Yeah, we drove in, and we went from hot to cold. And, of course, we'll go back cold to hot, and then we'll come back hot to cold. So you'll love it.
That's great. I know you do some coaching and do some clinics. What would you tell somebody who wants to do what you did? They want to be pro. What are some of the things that you would tell them that would influence them to either continue or choose something different? Or how do you coach the kiddos to have a little bit of what you have?
Well, what I would tell them is, take a little bit of time and go back and look at a team called Wichita State. And think about them going 35-0. The reason they went 35-0 is because me and Xavier Daniels went in there and talked to those guys. And we made them understand that you may not be looked at as the best, but you should have the attitude that you are the best. So we created something was known, and I did it with my younger kids on my AAU team. It was called Play Angry.
I've seen that hashtag on your Twitter.
And a lot of people really don't understand Play Angry. It was never that I'm going to go out there and I'm going to be upset at the other team that I'm playing. No, I'm upset with the media. I'm upset with all the others that did not give me the due I was due. I was one of the best players in the country, but yet you rated me 50th. So now I'm going to have that attitude. Now I have to show all 49 others that actually I'm the best. I've got to show every media person that I'm the best. And that's what Play Angry is about. You have to show the reason that you think you're the best. And if you look at a young man right now, and his motto is bet on himself, Fred VanVleet. Look what he did in 1 year.
Wow.
Okay, he went from college and became a champion. And look how he plays even to this day.
Wow.
So he took Play Angry and he made that into bet on himself. And now he's one of the best players at guard to me in the game.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you clarified. I see that hashtag on your Twitter account quite a bit. I see also in the generation wanting to skip steps or skip the process. And something that you did very well is you went through the process. You did all your time in college. When you couldn't get into the NBA for what you wanted, you went to Europe. Like, you didn't skip any steps. You did the work. You showed up to work every day. And to me, that is super inspiring. And I wish more people would understand that you can't just get things that you want in life without sacrifice and hard work.
Well, it's not really worth it if you didn't have to sacrifice. To me, I mean, you don't really get the true feeling.
Yeah.
You know, it's, how do I put this? It's like me coming up here and I decide I want to buy a home. But I know nothing. And instead of me going to my buddy Joe Black to teach me what I need to know, I'm kind of sitting there kind of fluttering in the wind.
Yeah.
Well, see, you don't do that. You get into there, you get that loyalty, you keep working that loyalty, and all of a sudden you'll see that it builds everything. So that's why I keep coming back to the same thing. This loyalty that you have to have for each other is so very, very important.
How did that relationship start? How did you guys get involved with one another?
Well, I have a guy that we call the polar bear. And he is a young man. When I first met him, it was St. George. And he called me up and he asked me, he said, well, Antoine, you know, some of the kids up here aren't able to come to the camps in that area. I was wondering if, you know, if I put some stuff together, can we do a basketball camp? Well, we did that basketball camp, and we raised a ton of money for the Diabetes Association, which was a good thing because my mom was also a diabetic. So that came out great. Well, then once me and Ty got together, we've done things over the years constantly. Well, we were getting ready to come back here, and we were talking, and he goes, hey, I want you to meet a friend of mine, a young man that I kind of taught him. He's like 12 years old back then. I'm like, okay, let me know who he is. We'll go talk about it. Well, then he showed me the paperwork, and he goes, well, he works for Keller Williams. Well, obviously, being in construction, I know who they are. And I'm, okay. And I look up, and I see what they're doing. I see their red day, and I'm okay. Well, you know what? These are the type of guys I love being around. These are the type of guys that will look out and say, I got your back. You need loyalty, I got you. So, you know, for these guys, they connected, they did things. Me, I come in, I'm a little bit of an outsider. They took me in as if I was family. And when you bring me loyalty, you know what you're getting back from the dog, right?
That's great. Absolutely. Absolutely. So what is your role with the charity?
Mine is just be out there and help as much as possible. If I need to go over there and help build a home for some needy, I will. If we have to go and do something and someone has lost a business and we need to try to help pump them up, I'm going to do it.
That's great.
I'm going to, whatever these guys need me to help do, just like if you look on their red day, all of their people are out doing community work around the world. Not just here in Salt Lake, but around the world. So for me, it's easy. You deal with people like that are looking out for other people, mostly kids. For me, I'm down. I've got you. Let's go make this happen.
That's great. What was the origin of Red Day? How did that come about?
Well, I would say we're going to have to ask Mr. Black on that.
Let's get him on.
Okay?
Let's get him on.
Because I don't want to see it wrong, and we know that he is the expert.
Thank you, Antoine, for giving me this opportunity to talk on your show and the podcast here today, the Dawgcast. Red Day this year is we're teaming up with the Sugar House Chamber of Commerce to help COVID-19 affected businesses rebound, right? They need to rebound. Yes, and every year, the second Thursday of May, we have Red Day where internationally every Keller Williams office shuts down and we give back to the community. So that's part of why I hung my real estate license here. You got to give back. You got to be about people. It's a tremendous organization. So
That's great.
Thank you.
And then this year is all about relief in the local area for COVID-19.
Yeah. So the Sugar House Chamber of Commerce has teamed up with us, and we're going to help the local businesses that have really struggled with COVID-19. So if you're out and you see the "We're Open" signs, go in and have a meal.
Gotcha. So what specifically, it's just the one day, what actually happens on that day? What are people doing?
So this year it's just the agents. We're looking for a venue still. So if anybody out there has one, they'd like to donate the time to us, that would be wonderful. We're raising money. We are also giving away an Antoine signed basketball. Every $50 in donations will be an entry to win that. So call me directly. I'm online. If you want to look me up, Joe Black at Keller Williams, Salt Lake City, or you can call our front desk and find out how to do that.
So you said if they donate
every $50 is an entry towards the autographed basketball.
Wow, that's great. That's a great gift. That's awesome. What is, I know you kind of talked about this, but what does giving back to the community mean to you personally?
Personally, givers gain. If you're about people, the money follows. You can't ever get into business just looking for the money. And the relationships and friendships you get along the way are what the true definition of wealth is.
Yeah. It's another great life lesson. We've hosted author Bob Burg on our show. He wrote The Go-Giver, and it's all about doing business in a way that you're giving. And I think so many people are out trying to get, they're trying to take, they're trying to compete, where if you give of yourself, you create space for that to come back in your life. And it's a really beautiful life lesson.
Absolutely.
When you're trying to claw your way to the top and beat everybody versus we're going to give back. We're going to take some time, give back to the community, support other people. That gives you that ability to have that come back into your life. So I think that's a beautiful answer.
And a happy mindset.
I love that.
Yep.
That's great. Well, anything else we should know about Red Day?
That's the basis of it. Every year we do it, second Thursday of May. It's a different charity every time. Sometimes we're just serving at the soup kitchen. So yeah, just if you wanted to stay involved, just look out at a Keller Williams anywhere in the world on the second Thursday of May, and
that's great. Can people directly get involved with that, or is it more like donation based?
Sometimes they can. This year with COVID, we're hosting it with just the agents in our office for this one, but we are happily taking donations over the phone.
Great. Well, I'll donate this year, and hopefully next year I can be in person and do it with you.
That'd be great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for elaborating on that. That sounds like an amazing charity.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
All right. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Allowing him to come on and
absolutely
explain, because sometimes I get a little tongue-tied.
It was a great explanation. I see there's some athletes that they have their whole career, whether they get engaged with the fans or not, whatever, and they just kind of maybe ride off into the sunset. And we've had several professional athletes on that not only decided to not just ride off into the sunset, they decided to share their message. They decided to stay engaged with people and talk to people. And that's certainly what you decided to do. And I want to know why you decide to stay active on Twitter. Why do you decide to share your message? Why do you decide to get involved with charities when you could just go have your business? You could live off the money you made in your career. Like you don't need to go do those things. What is your drive to stay connected?
Well, I'm still a country boy at heart. You know, I still want to go out there when I'm doing a tile job. And I want to see the glee, the happiness on that wife's face that I've just finished her kitchen. I want to see the husband to have that tear almost in his eye when he sees his man cave. You know, those are the little things, just those little bitty things that most people skip over.
Yeah.
I tend to enjoy. Those are the things that I want to see. I want to see kids who were told you'll never amount to anything. I want to see those kids turn around and become a lawyer, a doctor, going to Harvard to school. You know, I've had kids go to my camps, and one young lady was abused her whole time coming up. Well, she ended up going to Harvard after going through one of our basketball camps when she was much younger. And now she's doing the same thing that I was doing. And she's touching all these other kids and showing that you can actually do it. You can actually come from a place that is very, very bad and feels terrible to you to a loving and great place and to a positive place in your life.
I love that. That's great. We're just so grateful that you decided to stay engaged. You communicate with people. You give back. You have your business, which sounds like you're doing a lot of good for people, which is great. What would you say would be like one takeaway that you would want the listener to have from this conversation that they can use and apply in their life?
Make sure that you listen to his and my podcast at all times.
There we go. Trick people into listening. We're down. That's great.
Well, ask me that question again because I started laughing. And, man.
Well, actually, you know what? I'll ask you the question again in a second, but tell me about your podcast. I didn't know you were doing that.
Well, the Dawgcast is about legends, not just NBA legends, but legends around the world that I'm going to talk to. And because of my friendship with them, I'm going to ask them some pretty tough questions.
All right.
And that's why I want the fans to make sure when you're looking on Facebook and IG and all other things, that if there's a question you want to ask the player, send it to me.
That's awesome.
I'm going to ask the guys, and they have a right to answer it, but I also have a right to report on it and try to get an answer out of you. Now, like I tell guys, you can always just say, look, I don't want to talk about it.
Sure.
But then my job is also say, well, this is what the report said, so you have a chance to answer that.
Yeah. Dude, that sounds great. That sounds very entertaining. That
So
is
it's
definitely
called
something-
Legends Unlocked.
Great. Legends Unlocked. Awesome. We will link to that in the show notes. For the listeners, be sure to actually subscribe to the podcast. Please take the time to leave a rating and review. I had no idea how much difference it makes for exposure, and it really helps people. So for the listener, when you listen to Antoine's Dawgcast,
You know, we call it the Big Dawgcast.
the Big Dawgcast, it takes 30 seconds. Take the time, go to your favorite platform, leave a rating and review so that you can build your audience. It sounds like a great format and a really great show.
Well, I would love for them to all come on. Like I said, if you got a question and you've never been able to get that answer, let me try.
That's great. That's great. The question I asked you before was, what is one simple thing that you would recommend for the listener that they could take from this conversation and apply to their lives for benefit?
Well, I would say don't really worry about money as much during this tough time. Worry about the love that you can present to other people, because we're going to need it going into our next cycle. We're not for sure what exactly is going to go on. So if you're constantly giving a little love back, then our world will be so much better.
I love that. Okay,
let's get away from this red and blue and you're Republican, you're Trump supporter, you're Black Lives Matter. Let's step away from all of that and start paying attention to how many times we can say, I love you.
I love that. I love that. That's a great answer. Beautiful answer. Where would you like people to go to find you and connect with you?
You can look pretty much anywhere, Facebook, Instagram. You'll see all the different areas of, obviously, social media. And then eventually we'll have a telephone number they'll be able to reach out to. Right now I can't give out my personal number, but obviously we'll make sure that you have a way of getting in contact of us and what we can do to help you out.
That's great. Love that. We'll link to all that in the show notes. We'll definitely link to the Red Day Charity with Keller Williams. I think that's an amazing program. I'm so glad you got involved with that. Antoine Carr, dude, the big dog. You have no idea. Such an honor.
Well, I thank you for allowing me to come on your podcast. I want to say to everyone out there, show a little love, because I love you too.
Man, that's great. Got to end on that one. Such an honor. Like I said, just such great memories of those days. And thank you for your career, your hard work, everything that you did to not quit and keep going and show that grit and determination and do it with some style.
All right. Well,
do
thank
it with
you.
some style.
And one thing I was going to say to you too. Oh, it's not too soon to ask that question. Okay? When it comes to what happened with Michael Jordan, the situation there, if you got a question, don't be scared to ask.
Oh, man.
Okay? It's not a problem because, hey, I was there. I was ready to make things happen, and some of the playboys came up and tried to give me a cake. I'm sure you heard about
That's
that.
right.
One day we'll talk about
That's
that
right.
more.
That's a great story. That's hilarious.
So I love you guys again. Thank
That's
you.
great. Thank you very much for appearing. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.